whole structure is organized to look out towards a horizon and so on and so on. But that story is way gone. We now live in urban environments. Yeah. So now we walk along looking for dog shit. As I did when I was in Nice in France. God, there's dog shit everywhere. So as you're here, see if you can imagine where your horizon would be. Because that is your biological inheritance. Sorry to be so crass. Some of us like looking for $2 coins, whatever it is. Now, just tilt your head a little bit backwards so that your chin goes away from your throat. And if you were to keep your eyes on a horizon, can you feel the sensation in your eyes and how your eyes change their position in the orbits, the bony orbits of your head? And now do the opposite, ever so slightly, tilt the chin more closer to the throat, but keep your eyes on a horizon. And can you feel that that is a different sensation in the eyes yet again? Do that a few more times. Tip the chin away from the throat, tip the chin towards the throat, and attend to the movement of the eyes. So your eyes do have independent motion. Your face could be directed towards the floor and you could still see the horizon, and your face could be directed more towards the sky and you still see the horizon. So in the next few moments, could you find out for yourself what position of the head produces the least amount of strain in the eyes, where the eyes can just simply rest at some level out in front of you without any sense of effort or strain, and let that for the moment be the position of your head and your eyes towards a horizon. Good. Now close your eyes. However, if you've got a little bit of a balance issue, don't close your eyes. And just remember that feeling. Remember the feeling of the position of your head, the chin relative to the throat, the sensation of your eyes, where your ears are relative to your shoulder. Just remember that whole sensation of that position. Okay. And please take a seat facing the back of the room. You can have your legs long if you wish, but lean on the floor behind you with your hands. So you're kind of reclining. You have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bases of support, the 2 legs, your pelvis, and the 2 hands. And in this position, imagine yourself looking directly forward towards a horizon at this level. And see if you can recreate that same feeling of the face and the eyes both directed towards a horizon. If images of being by the beach, looking at the sun setting, arise, let them, that's fine, because that is the horizon. Or a sunset, or in the desert. Good. Okay, now would you please change position once more? Could you lean on your elbows and your forearms, and you can have your legs long, or you can have the soles of the feet together, touching, and the knees apart, whichever you choose. And now in this new position, in this new configuration of yourself and your limbs, can you have your face directed towards a horizon at this level? So this is what you're experimenting with now is something inherent in our skeletal structure. Human beings are so structured that you could be lying on the floor and still have your head towards a horizon. You could be lying on your tummy and have your head towards a horizon. You could be lying on your side and have your head towards a horizon. Now, stay there for a little bit longer and get a sense, is it a little bit of a strain on the front of your neck? Are you starting to experience a little strain? If you are, that means your head is not vertical. The plane of your face is up towards the ceiling. Your head is hanging backwards. What could you do with your chest and your spine to allow the head to come more onto the horizon, but stays leaning on the elbows? Is there some way of softening the chest, letting the breastbone kind of sink towards the pelvis on the floor? And now do the complete opposite. Stiffen the chest. Imagine that you've swallowed a stick and notice where the head goes. If the chest can't fold and the spine can't bend, notice where your head goes. All right, that's enough stick swallowing. Go back to the other. Let the chest fold a little bit. Let the ribs kind of just come together like the movements of a fan. Great. Let that be. Rest on your back, please. So this is another kind of movement principle in this method, that the head, whenever it's possible, can orient towards a horizon. That's the inheritance of our structure as human beings. Please bend your legs, have the soles of your feet together. And remember, as I said yesterday, those of you who have discomfort having the legs apart like that, please just stand the legs or approximate that position as best as you can so that you don't have to suffer through that. It's better not to suffer. Prop yourself up onto your elbows and forearms. Imagine your pelvis is in the middle of a clock. 12 is towards your feet, 6 is towards your head. Start to roll your pelvis 12, 6, 12, 6. And as you make that movement, pay attention. When does your head orient more towards the horizon? To which hour? 6 or 12? Now stop a moment, rest. That's enough. So those of you who have not done many awareness through movement lessons, the movements that we do are quite different because the intent is not to fatigue yourself. Because fatigue is like the enemy of crisp, clear attention. The tireder you get, the less focused you become. So there's no point fatiguing yourself. It's not conducive to learning. It's better to do a few movements and stop and maintain the freshness. Prop yourself up onto your elbows and forearms again. Bring the soles of your feet together. And now intentionally incline your head backwards and then intentionally bring your chin towards your chest. Do that many, many times. And then ask yourself, in which direction would I roll my pelvis as I'm moving my head? How would these two movements go together? So you're intentionally moving your head and you're feeling through yourself the connection through the pelvis. What makes sense? Now, some of you are chucking your head around like it was a volleyball. Don't. Don't. There's a lot of precious stuff in there. But most likely what you'll do is you'll nauseate yourself because the balance organs are being overly stimulated. Good. Leave it. Rest. And for most of you, that invitation to rest, actually not an invitation, it was a command really, wasn't it? Let's not kid ourselves. Yeah. It's important because the muscles that you're using to keep your head upright for most of you are on the front of your neck. They're what they call flexor muscles. And biologically speaking, flexor muscles did not evolve to maintain posture. So they fatigue really quickly. Whereas the extensor muscles, the muscles that kind of bend us backwards, they did evolve to maintain posture. And they can be contracted for a long period of time. So unless your head is in perfect balance, the muscles of your neck will fatigue quite quickly because they're doing what they're not designed to do, to support the weight of the head over a long period of time. Please come up to being propped up onto your elbows again. Have the soles of the feet together, the knees apart. And now just take a few moments to check out your elbow position. If you were a good engineer or a good builder, have you made a good structure for yourself? Are the elbows in a place that are really supporting you? Or have you got them sort of out to the side too much? Are they more towards the pelvis than underneath the shoulder? So make a few little adjustments so that you really feel supported by the struts of your upper arm, from the shoulder right down through to the elbow. Now, start to rock your pelvis 12 to 6 intentionally and start to move your head intentionally. As the pelvis goes to 12, take your chin towards your chest. As the pelvis goes to 6, take your chin away from your chest. That was a puzzled look. Are you okay? Uh-huh. Did I change direction? Yeah, you're right, actually. I was wrong. That's okay. As your pelvis goes to 12, your chin goes away from your chest. Thanks for the puzzled look. That was good. As your pelvis goes to 12, your chin goes away from your chest. As your pelvis goes to 6, your chin goes towards your chest. So that is one particular set of relationships. Yes. So the question was are the palms on the floor? And the answer is yes, but you shouldn't believe me. Try doing this movement with the palms towards the ceiling and feel the difference. Notice that it's quite a different feeling in the arms to have the palms towards the ceiling compared to the palms on the floor. Okay, rest again. Yep. Uh, Tell me a little bit more. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's tougher. Because then you couldn't stay on your elbows, right? You'd have to lift off your elbows. So that's where my mistake was. So if I can state your question for everybody, was that movement that you were just doing of taking your head back as the pelvis goes to 12 an extension movement, a movement of extension in the back? And the answer is yes, it is. Come up onto your elbows and forearms again. Put the soles of your feet together. And start to make that movement again of taking the pelvis to 12 as the throat, as the chin goes away from the throat, and the pelvis to 6 as the chin goes towards the throat. And start to track what's happening with your breastbone at the front. When does your breastbone move higher? In other words, further away from the floor? When you're doing what with your pelvis and head? And then switch your attention and track, when do the thighs come closer to the floor? When you're going towards 12 or when you're going towards 6? And then also change again your attention and then track, when does your back arch strongly? When do the lower ribs lift high from the floor? When do the lower ribs come closest to the floor? Which hour are you traveling towards when that happens? Okay, that's enough. Rest. And come up onto your elbows and have your soles together. Begin to do that movement of rocking the pelvis 12, 6, 12, 6, and involve your head, but make it a bit smaller. Definitely smaller and faster. Not as fast as you can go, but definitely faster than what you were doing before, but within a smaller range of motion. Fast and small. 12, 6, 12, 6, 12, 6. And notice whether that increase in speed clarifies something for you. Clarifies some sort of connection between the pelvis and the head, or clarifies the movement of the chest, or clarifies the movement of the leg. So sometimes just a simple change in speed will enable us to notice something that before we didn't notice. Great. Let that be, please. Rest. Okay, so far we've related the movement of the head to the movement of the pelvis. You've tracked the movement of your chest and how it goes through space. You've tracked the movement of your lower ribs at the back and how they change their relationship with the floor. You've tracked the flapping, sorry to call it that, but the flapping movement of the legs, how the legs lower towards the floor and then come up again. Have you tracked the abdomen yet, what the abdomen is doing? Even though I haven't said it, have you tracked it yet? Please, come up onto your elbows, your forearms, bring the soles of your feet together and start to do the same movements that you've been doing, but track intentionally your abdomen. And see if you can use your lower abdomen right down there below the navel to assist you to move the pelvis 12, 12, push out the abdomen as you go to 12, 12. It's like, it's almost like the fluid contents of that whole abdominal wall push the pelvis in the same way that the power of a wave would push a surfer riding on the front of the wave. Great. Let that be, please. Rest again. Could you please roll up to sitting? And now, pair up with the person closest by you. Okay, so I'm going to verbally guide you through this little touching process. So could one of you please get into that position where you're leaning on your elbows and your forearms and the soles of the feet together. Yep, that's one of you. Yeah, elbows, forearms, soles of the feet together. And could the other person who's going to be the spotlight operator. That's the metaphor. You know, in the theatre, you have a spotlight operator who spotlights particular actors on the stage. That's what you're going to do with your hand. So that is the function of your hand, like an attentional spotlight. Okay, so person who's in that position, could you start rocking the pelvis? 12 and 6 involve the head. And spotlighters, could you put your hand on the very top of their breastbone, lightly enough so that you don't interfere, but with enough contact so that you can feel what that is that they're doing. So you make contact lightly enough so that you don't interfere, firmly enough so that you can feel what's happening there. Oh, okay. I was scanning the room. Is there someone? Yeah. Great. Now, stop, let your partner rest, and could you verbally report to your partner in as short a sentence as possible? Now, listen carefully. Verbally report to your partner in as short a sentence as possible what you felt their breastbone was doing. Okay, that's a short sentence. Come back up into that position. I said short sentence. Not a sentence with many, many subclauses like you're reading a legal contract. That's a different sentence. Go. Come and prop yourself up onto the elbows and forearms. Start to do that movement. 12, 6, 12, 6. Involve the head. And now, spotlighters, can you please put your hands on their lower ribs at the back? It doesn't have to be both. It can be one side. And feel what's happening with those lower ribs in relation to the floor. Whichever pace suits you. And now you know what you're about to do. Are you paying attention differently? There's no more surprises like, oh, gee, I'm going to have to report on this. He knows. All right, that's enough. Stop. Person, have a rest. And now could you report to your partner in as short a sentence as possible what you felt their ribs were doing relative to the floor? Okay, that's a short sentence. Stop. Sorry. Stop. Person, come back onto your elbows. So you haven't swapped roles yet. You're still maintaining the same role. Come back up onto your elbows, put the soles of your feet together, start to do the 12 to 6 movement. And this time, spotlighters, could you put your hands on their knees and track what their knees are doing? So now you have 2 actors on the stage. Double spotlight job. And this is, spotlighters, your job is actually far trickier than you imagine. Because as soon as you touch your person, you are influencing them. And anybody who's ever been on the stage knows when you know the spotlight is on you, something changes. Notice if one leg moves differently to the other. Okay, stop. Please report to your partner what you felt. Okay, short sentence over. One more. Get back into that position. And this time, spotlighters, can you please find your partner's navel? Find their navel. And now, move your hand about a hand width. So if you move your hand a hand width below their navel, you know you're not going to get close to any private parts, but at least you know that you're below the navel a certain distance. And now, person, could you start doing that movement again? 12, 6, with the pelvis, involve the head. Yes. Yes. So you find your partner's navel. Yep. And then if that's the navel, if you go one hand span lower, there, yeah. That's it. And now you've given your partner a place to push into. Person doing the movement, can you think of trying to push your partner's fingers away? Oh, when they go to 12, every time you go to 12. Yep, thank you for that. Okay, that's enough, please. Let that be. Report to your partner. Okay. Let's switch roles. Switch roles. So, lean on your elbows and your forearms, have the soles of your feet together. And the first thing that you can do is to watch your partner doing the movement. And as you're watching your partner doing the movement, look at the rise and the fall of their chest, especially the upper chest, where the breastbone is. And then once you've watched them a few times, just lightly land your hand on their chest, trying not to interfere with their movement, and feel how their chest is moving through your hand. So you've seen it with your eyes. Now you can also track it with your hand. And literally, your partner will move your hand in space. And if you track the movement of your hand, then of course you know directly, without having to guess, where their breastbone is moving. Whether it's moving towards the ceiling, towards the floor, towards their chin, towards their pelvis, you can feel it directly in your hand. Let that be. Report to your partner what you felt and what you saw. Short sentence. That's good. I like it. Gives them more time to rest. Yeah. 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 So different places you put your hands, you get different information. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Come back into position. Again, watch your partner do a few movements and particularly direct your eyes to their lower rib area at the back. It's kind of like where the ribs meet the back of the waistline. So you watch them and then you illuminate their movement through the contact of your hands, because so far it's been all about you seeing what they're doing. But as soon as you put your hands on them, they get to feel more what they're doing, as well as you getting additional information through the contact of your hands on your partner. So that's what you call a win-win scenario. You find out something, they find out something, without you having to say a word. And spotlighters, you know, if you position yourself just right, that means your partner will be moving your hand through space. Okay, that's enough. Stop. Please report to your partner briefly. That was brief. Okay, get back to position, please. Maybe I should use this timing. And start to watch your partner doing the movement and attend to their knees and what their thighs and their legs are doing as they take their pelvis 12 to 6 and move their head. And then once you've watched them for a little while, land your hands softly on their leg, on their knee, and track them. Yeah, pace them. So for every movement that they do, you follow them. Just like a person operating a spotlight would do on the stage. As the actor moves across the stage, the job of the spotlight operator is to always keep them in the brightest spot of the spotlight, which requires a little bit of anticipation. Where are they about to move? And that's why the spotlight operator is always there during rehearsals, so that they know where the actor's about to move. more or less. Some actors are pretty wild. Okay, that's enough. Please report to your partner what you saw and felt. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me take the weight of your legs. Yeah. And now do the movement. You can do it lying on the ground. That's okay. See, when your legs are higher, you're more confident about letting them go down. Can you feel that? Yeah. So for you, you could do this lesson like that. Yeah. This one's more confident than this one. Yeah. The injured one. Yeah. It's interesting. This one moves more, this one moves less. Yeah. Anyway, this one moves less, this one moves more. Okay. One more round. Please go back to the movement. Now, find your partner's navel. And then move your hand one hand span down below the level of their navel. And then once your hand is there, located, start to do the movement. And because your partner now has a very definite sensation of a location on their body, maybe they can direct their abdominal movement with more accuracy, with more confidence, with more precision, because they have a definite location. Some place that they can feel, they can move into as they go to 12 o'clock. Yeah, no, it's not a good position for a lot of us. But you know, it could help a little bit. There, that's it. Okay, let that be. Report to your partner. Okay. And please return to your mat. Uh, get yourself into that position, leaning on your elbows, your forearms, the soles of the feet touching. And hopefully now you have a sense of what the major actors are in this movement. The movement of the breastbone, the movement of the ribs, the movement of the legs, the movement of the abdomen. You're already familiar with the movement of the pelvis from yesterday. So these are like the major players here. And if they're all a little bit involved, the movement gets a bit easier. Okay? So go ahead and do that movement for yourself. Lean on the elbows, the forearms. Take the pelvis 12, 6, 12, 6. Move the head intentionally with the pelvis. As the pelvis goes to 12, the chin goes away from the throat. As the pelvis goes to 6, the chin goes towards the throat. And because you've had that contact, your spotlighter has provided you with greater illumination about what's happening in those areas. Can you bring that to bear? Can you recall those sensations and increase how and where you move from? Great. Now, please continue that movement, but make one intentional variation. Keep your face and your eyes directed towards a horizon. And notice what changes when you can no longer take your head backwards. When the head is stationary, more or less in space, where do you need to move more from? What parts of you need to become more involved? And as I'm looking around the room, I'm seeing a lot of abdomen swelling and a lot of lower rib cage movement. Can you, yeah, it's nice. Go a little faster, keeping your head still. Great. Let that be pause. This is one of those lessons for those of us that have a hard time keeping our head completely upright. It's one of those lessons that if you pause more, if you rest more frequently, you get better and better. Come back into the same position. And now make one variation with your arm position. Keep the right arm as it is, but have the left arm lying beside you. So you're no longer leaning on the left elbow. You can lean on the left palm if you like, that's fine, but you're no longer leaning on the elbow, which means what? It means you're going to have to shift your weight over more onto that right side. And now in this new position, go ahead and make that 12 to 6 movement. And it's going to be a very different experience. Yeah, I know it's mean, isn't it? Huh? Your elbow is actually off the floor. The left elbow is off the floor. Now, when you're in an asymmetrical configuration like this, notice how one side of your back has to work more. And in this case, it's going to be the left side. The left side of the back has to work more. The right side is more supported. The left side's less supported. The muscles have to contract more on the left hand side of the lower back. Okay, 3 people have lied down, that's enough, stop. Okay. When you get to be ATM teachers, when you see about 1, 2, 3, 4 people lie down, you go, okay, everybody have a rest. There's another reason for resting before you fatigue, and that is your attention gets all skewed. Because if you're fatigued, you're starting to focus more and more on the discomfort that is arising. So your attention is no longer being directed to the details of your movement. You're becoming totally distracted by your discomfort. So what's the point? Stop, rest. Matter of fact, coaches eventually learned that when their teams or when their athlete that they're coaching is having one of those bad days, there's no point persisting. What most coaches do now, you're having a bad day, go home, rest. Because otherwise you're just practicing something that you don't really want to practice, bad technique. Come up onto that in that same position, but reverse the arm position. So now lean fully on the left elbow and the left forearm. Have the right arm alongside you somewhere, elbow off the floor, palm leaning. And start to move the pelvis 12 to 6 with the head on a horizon. And because your face is directed forward, do you notice how one leg goes closer to the floor? Okay, that's enough. Stop, rest. One more time, come up into that position. Both elbows this time on the floor. And begin to make that 12 to 6 rocking movement with the pelvis, the head oriented towards a horizon in front of you. And without straining yourself, could you find out how far forward can you tip that pelvic bowl? And the further forward that pelvic bowl tips, the higher and higher from the ground the lower ribs will come. You can use your legs to help. Stop, rest. return to that position, leaning on the elbows, soles of the feet together. Keep your face oriented towards an imaginary horizon directly in front of you. And now begin to lower the right thigh towards the floor on the right and return. And then the left thigh towards the floor to the left and return. And please remember to keep the edges of the feet always on the floor. On the floor, yep. So at no time does the sole of the foot come into contact with the floor or your other foot. The edges of the feet are always on the floor. Now, notice, how do you need to shape your back to get the thigh onto the floor? Which side of the back needs to arch more for the left thigh to land on the floor? And if the left side of the back is arching more, just answered that. If you were listening carefully, I told you, pay attention. Then where does the chest go? Okay, that's enough rest. Now, as you're lying there, this is the last variation, by the way. So as you're lying there, imagine to yourself that in your navel, you have a little laser light. Could be green, could be red, purple, whatever color you want, really. But it's shining directly forward of your navel. Yeah? Like shining a light up onto the ceiling. Now come back into that position, leaning on your elbows, soles of the feet together. You've taken your pelvis to 6, you've taken your pelvis to 12, to 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So now, can you move your pelvis in such a way that that little laser light that's shining out from your navel makes a circular shape on the ceiling? And this isn't my image, this is straight out of the lesson. I'm not making this one up. Yeah? And then once you've got the hang of that idea, once you start to go, that's how I direct the light over there, that's how I direct the light over there, you can intentionally begin to circle your pelvis as fast or as slow as you like. And in my imagination, I'm seeing a Hollywood extravaganza. You know, the new movie is opening and all the spotlights are shining through the sky. Ooh, yeah. Or is it Broadway? I don't know. The pelvis is on the floor. Now, a few times in the other direction. If you've been going clockwise, go anti-clockwise. If you've been going anti-clockwise, go clockwise. Yeah. Okay. Let that be. Rest on your back fully. Notice what it feels like just to simply lie on the floor and what the contact of the floor is like. And when you're ready, roll to one side, come up to standing, and feel what standing is like, having done those movements of the center of yourself, the whole trunk area involving the pelvis, the chest, the spine. And then please walk a little bit. Notice what it's like to walk with having done a lesson that involves a lot of driving movements from the pelvis. Okay, and please take a 15-minute break. We'll come back at 20 past.